In 1994, Sweden wasn't expected to win. They weren't even expected to be remembered. But sometimes, football doesn't follow expectations. Sometimes it follows belief, and by a nation that refused to forget what it once was. Sweden had never been a dominant force in world football. They were respected, but never feared. A nation that appeared in tournaments, but rarely defined them. They didn't carry the weight of history, like Brazil. They didn't carry the pressure of dominance, like Germany. In control, like Spain later do. Sweden existed, somewhere in between, strong enough to compete, but not strong enough to lead. And in 1994, nothing suggested that this would change.
But Sweden had something different. Not a system built to control every second of the game, but a structure built on trust, discipline, physical strength, and timing. They were not the most glamorous team in the tournament. They were not the loudest. They were not the side the world came to watch. But inside that team, there was balance. There was Tomas Brolin, clever, calm, a player who could slow the game down, and then change it with a single decision. There was Kenneth Andersson, powerful in the air, direct, relentless, always dangerous when Sweden moved forward. There was Martin Dahlin, sharp, mobile, giving the attack another layer of threat, and behind them, there was Tomas Ravelli, experienced, vocal, the kind of goalkeeper who gave belief to everyone in front of him. Sweden did not play to impress. They played to survive, to compete, and then to hurt you in the moments that mattered. They didn't arrive as favorites, but they didn't play like outsiders. Every movement, every pass, felt familiar, as if they had played together for years. And slowly, the team began to reveal itself, not as individuals, but as a system. Their football was direct, efficient, and emotionally strong. No wasted movement, no unnecessary risk. Just a team that understood exactly what it was. Then came the 1994 FIFA World Cup in the United States. Big stadiums, summer heat, unfamiliar surroundings, and a world that expected bigger nations to take control. But Sweden kept moving, match by match, performance by performance. They grew into the tournament. And when the journey brought them to Atlanta, the stage felt even bigger. The pressure increased. The spotlight became brighter. But Sweden did not change.
Something was growing. Confidence, not built on reputation, but on performance. Game by game, they started to prove something, not to the world, but to themselves. But they miraram Sergio Agüero, decisive.
They stayed compact, stayed disciplined, stayed together. And that was the real strength of that team. Not superstardom, not fear factor, but belief, shared equally. by every player on the pitch. Within that team, certain players began to stand out, not because they demanded attention, but because they delivered. In the moments that mattered, Tomas Brolin, a player who could change the rhythm of the game, not through power, but through timing. Who would later bring his influence into European football, making his name with clubs like Parma, not a global superstar, but exactly what Sweden needed around him. Players who understood their roles, who didn't try to do everything, but did their part. Purely, this wasn't a team of stars, it was our team. Off balance. And as the tournament progressed, Sweden didn't just survive. They advanced step by step, challenge by challenge. They moved forward. Not with dominance, but with resilience. Matches that could have gone either way were decided by small moments. And in those moments, Sweden remained composed until suddenly, they were no longer outsiders. They were contenders. Sweden didn't play like underdogs. They stayed organized. They stayed compact. They stayed disciplined. Every movement was controlled. Every line held together, and for long moments. Is it not with fear, but with the belief that they could hold on, that they could push further. But football, at this level, doesn't forgive small mistakes. One moment, one break in concentration, was enough. And Brazil took the lead. Sweden fought until the end. But the final slipped away.
But their journey was not over in the third place match. Sweden responded not with frustration, but with clarity. They played their football, direct, efficient.
And confident, and against Bulgaria, they didn't just win. They dominated for goals. A clear statement that Sweden belonged amongst the best.
When the final whistle came, they were champions. But that wasn't the real story. The real story was what they had proven. Reaching the later stages wasn't just a result. It was a statement that Sweden had crossed a line no one expected them to reach. And even without lifting the trophy, they had already changed the narrative. They weren't just participants anymore. They were remembered. Years later, that moment would stand alone. Sweden didn't build a dynasty. They didn't dominate the next decade. But that wasn't the point, because what they achieved wasn't about sustaining power.
Years later, their paths would change. Tomas Brolin, the star of 1994, slowly faded from the spotlight. Injuries changed everything, but Swedish football would not disappear. Because years later, a different kind of player would rise. Zlatan Ibrahimovic are not part of that generation, but a symbol of everything Sweden could become.
It was about proving something, that belief, even without global stars, can take a nation further than expected. In 1994, Sweden didn't change football, but they changed something else, the idea of what was possible, and sometimes that's enough to be remembered forever.